DJ, would you mind turning off the AC while you're over there?
Time to swelter.
Yep. Helter skelter.
Helter swelter.
When I get to the bottom and the top of the ride.
There's some good songs on that album, but as a whole, that album could have used some tightening, I think.
Yeah, it could have not been a double.
Yes. Yes.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with our hosts Randall Nollery.
Hey everybody.
And DJ Mandolini.
What's up?
How you guys doing?
Awesome.
Doing great, Kevin. You know why?
Why?
Because we played some Rocket League before this, and we went out on a win.
We did go out on a win. We played 3 games, and we did lose the first 2.
But it's the last game that matters.
Yeah, that's the only one that counted.
It's a nice callback to episode 1, DJ. Nice job.
But I wanted to ask you guys, so I finally pulled the trigger and I did buy No Man's Sky.
Oh, nice.
They just finally announced they're calling it No Man's Sky 2.0 update. I think it's also called the Beyond update.
Yeah, I thought they had a fancier name than that.
Yeah, but they're like also like kind of referring to it as 2.0 as in like, oh, this is like such a different game from what it was originally, you know?
Right.
Or not necessarily different game, but more fleshed out or whatever. But it just like, you know, I was just thinking about it and it was on sale for half off on the PS store, the PlayStation store. And I was just like, and to be honest, they added, maybe this was already in the game but VR is in there and just like watching these clips of the new trailer. And I was just like, these guys made Joe Danger. And I really liked that game. I never played much of the sequel, but it also was pretty fun from the little bit I played.
Right.
But I was like, that game was super fun. It's half off. It's, I'm personally a big like Star Trek fan. I like sci-fi stuff. And it just looked like I could see myself getting kind of lost in this, especially if I had a VR setup.
Right.
Are you thinking about getting one?
I'm thinking about it. I think it would be well down the road still.
Wait for Black Friday, my dude. They always have good deals on that.
Okay, because that PlayStation VR is like, that's about as much as I would want to invest in it. I wouldn't.
Sure.
I'd have to have a way more powerful computer, and Oculus and all those other setups are just a little. I can't think of the other ones off the top of my head.
HTC Vive.
The Vive, yeah, that's right. The Vive. But yeah, those seem like a way more, steep investment. But
yeah,
but it seems like, stuff on there. There's a handful of other cool games that I've looked into on the PlayStation, like specifically for the PlayStation VR that look pretty cool, like Astrobot.
Oh yeah, and
Moss, but particularly No Man's Sky and like Subnautica and some of these like more immersive experiences seem like they'd be pretty cool. But even without VR, I just was like, for $25. The fact that they've been working on this game for 3 years or however long it's been since the initial release, which had a little bit of a rocky start to say, to put it mildly.
Oh yeah.
But a little bit of overpromising, a little bit of Peter Molyneux action.
I'll put some of that on Sony though. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know too much. I just remember, when people get their hopes up, it's like,
yeah.
I know we were talking a little bit before the podcast about like TV shows and like the end of the series, it's never going to live up to after 10 seasons, when Lost wraps up.
Oh boy.
It's like, it's not going to be that whatever you envisioned in your head, you're not writing the show and it's not going to be what you hoped,
Right.
So
remind me, what were the main complaints?
In regards to No Man's Sky,
yeah.
I think it was just like what they kind of like. It was like it was like in regards to like just like what they were talking about, what the game was going to be, and just what it ended up kind of being at the start at least.
Yeah, they were promising this like open-ended, ginormous playground that you could do anything and everything basically, and they were a small team relative to the scope of the project ultimately, and it just wasn't feasible, I think, for them to deliver on the promises that were kind of thrown out there, at least by their communications team.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a game that would have benefited from probably doing like an early access kind of situation and slowly tweaking and going along with, okay, this is what people like, this is what people don't like. Yep. But again, I guess that's sort of what they've ended up doing. You know, all these updates have been free. They've done a couple other, at least one or two other, if not more. I've been like, you know, just vaguely following the game. But they've done a couple other, you know, decent sized updates in the past, and the fact, it just kind of, you know, it just clicked where I was just looking at the PlayStation Store and the games on sale, and I was just kind of like, you know, these guys have, again, they've already made a game or a series of games that I really like, and even though, again, not having played too much of the sequel to Joe Danger, but I just thought, you know, they've been just constantly working on this thing, and like it's clearly something that they're very passionate about. And I just felt like, you know, I'm willing to give them a chance. So I haven't played it at all yet, but have you guys checked out any of the update stuff yet? Or I know I sent the trailer to our little hangout thread.
Yeah, that trailer was sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just that kind of game is not really my style, or, you know, being just dropped into a world and it's like you can do whatever you want. I like to be given a little more structure than what I got the impression that they were giving. So I was kind of actually like glad that it didn't do well, because it felt like I was justified in my like stance.
What a jerk.
I know.
Hate.
I know.
Well, for what it's worth, though, this new update, so one of the things that they added is like there's specifically, I think, 16-player online multiplayer for consoles and up to 32-player online for PC.
Man, nice.
I could be wrong about that, but there's definitely like online, like specific, you know, you can get into like a small server. And you can either you can do whatever you want, but they have added in stuff like, you know, it's not full blown like World of Warcraft or like Destiny, but they've added in like full blown quests where it's like they're either combat related or exploratory related, but there's actual purpose from what I've seen. Again, I've just kind of perused the trailer and looked at a couple, like I watched some like 10 or 15 minute video that was just kind of, it just had the trailer looping in the background, but they were just talking about all the like info about the update that's been leaked, or not leaked, but, you know, discussed or whatever and up to this point.
What's the combat like? Do you know? Is it like gun stuff, or is it like...
I really don't know. I think it does play like a third/first person shooter. I think it is one of those games you switch, you know, if you want to be in first or third person.
Got it.
But I don't know. I don't know that it plays like, it's not any kind of super fast paced combat, and maybe I could be even wrong about that. There might not even be combat, but it just looks like they've definitely like fleshed out some of those quest experiences to more than just like, you're not just going around mining. Oh, I found a new planet with a new resource and I'm mining it, and I'm finding new, you know, species and this and that. And they've also, from what I understand, they've really upgraded the ships and stuff, like the different spaceships you can get. They're way bigger than they ever were before in the game, and just like the way you can travel through space and whatnot. But I don't know. It looked like, again, I'm a big fan of Star Trek and sci-fi stuff, and it just seems like a game that, especially like if I ever do get a VR setup, like I mentioned before, I really think I could really get lost in this game. Especially if any of you guys end up picking it up and we play online and have a little, you know, a little base or something like that, little planet.
Yeah, especially if there is like shared world stuff that way, that would be sweet. I'd be into that. And I think it is. It's all the same world. I remember them talking about that when the game first launched, right? But like they're saying stuff like there's a chance you might not run into any other players. The universe is so big. I know it was like super exploration heavy as like the first. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all about like, it was like they kind of like were like weird about it. Like they wouldn't say explicitly, but they were like, it is massively online multiplayer, but you probably won't ever see anybody,
right? Because
it's so huge, like you were saying. So pretty cool that they, you know, you can still play, I think, in that mode, but then you can also play, hey, I do want to sync up with some people and you know, run a little space base.
How about this? I'll watch you play and then see if I can invest.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely going to check this out at some point. Maybe once I get my bearings, I'll stream a little, and check this game out. So, and see if I can sell you guys. See if I can sell myself first. So
I'm definitely curious. Yeah, I think this game at this point came out, like 2 or 3 years ago anyway, right?
I think it was about 3. Yeah, I think it was about 3 years.
And I know, like you said, they've been working on it ever since that point, which I think a lot of other studios would have been like, whoa, no, this like backlash is crazy. Let's lay lower and start on something brand new. And kudos to them for sticking through it and seeing it through to this huge update. And it's getting a lot of good praise seemingly now. So, yeah.
Yeah, and a little closer to what was originally promised for this game, so pretty cool to see them seeing it through. So kudos to them for sticking with it.
Totally.
But I guess just going right from that to more of the PlayStation stuff, which I know we talk about a lot of Nintendo stuff on this podcast since we play a lot of Switch. But DJ and Randall have both been dipping into one of the PlayStation Plus games this month of August, that is. The Wipeout Omega Collection, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Fill me in. I downloaded it, but I haven't played yet. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, so this is actually another game that supports VR also. For what that's worth.
Yeah. Fuck. I'm gonna end up buying it by the end of this episode. I do have $92 of Amazon credits, so it might happen.
I know. I want one of those headsets. I'm going to get the stupid Move controllers too when I do buy it. I'm going to go.
Oh God, I forgot about that. That is more of an investment. But anyways, not to keep getting sidetracked here.
Wipeout Omega Collection is a very fast racing game in the vein of, I would say, like F-Zero would be a pretty apt comparison, although way more modern than that since we haven't had an F-Zero since the GameCube days at this point.
Right.
But Wipeout Omega Collection is actually a combination and remaster of 2 previous Wipeout games, Wipeout HD Fury and Wipeout 2048. So it took both of those games, put the best parts together. You've got 26 tracks, you've got 46 ships, 9 different modes. I only played like an hour or 2 of this game. I think, DJ, you were in the same boat that way because this did just become available for August, not all that long ago from our time of recording here.
Yeah, probably only about a week ago.
Yeah. But I've enjoyed it so far. The sense of speed is crazy in this game. It's like fast, and it's like runs at full buttery smooth 60 frames per second. I've got a 4K TV, so it plays in full 4K and looks very pretty, although because it's so fast, I found myself not blinking, and it like wore my eyes out like crazy. Oh my God.
Yeah, I wonder how that would feel on VR.
Yeah, oh geez. Yeah, probably even worse, honestly, that way. Yeah. What do you think, DJ?
I mean, I agree with you. I wasn't anticipating like the drifting to be like so, sensitive also.
It is, yeah.
You just barely touch the button and you're going like 90 degrees or where it's like, geez, like how do you handle this? Like I had a really hard time. I could barely get in first in a lot of these tracks.
Yeah, it is not easy to get first.
So drifting, when you mention drifting, I just kind of think of Mario Kart. Because I want to say F-Zero, if I'm not mistaken, there wasn't any kind of drifting. I mean, the car itself would have a little bit of like a drifting feel to it, but I don't think there was like a button. I could be wrong about that. But is there any like, are you getting weapons and stuff like that? Is it
you drift? But yeah.
Okay. Is it are you getting like weapons in this game and Wipeout to like attack other people, or is it strictly racing?
There are weapons too. Yes. Though I don't feel like many of them are effective.
Yeah.
Like, you got the cannons that give you like, a set amount of bullets you can shoot out and like, but they don't seem to do much damage or like cause the cars to slow down. Speaking of damage, yeah, you have a total amount of health. And so if you just get killed, you're done.
Right.
So
that's pretty F-Zero as well.
Yes.
But gee, like I'm always pumped if like what I get is the autopilot because that just seems to be the most useful thing.
Yeah, I did get that a couple of times. That was kind of surprising when that was one of the items you could pick up. It's like,
So is that like
I'll
bullet?
race this part for you.
That's Bullet Bill.
Yes,
Bullet Bill.
Bullet Bill. You're back in third. Congratulations.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited to check this game out. It's one that, looks cool, but it's, I'm not a huge racing game fan. I enjoy them. I always have fun playing them. But it just, I'm always like, I don't know how much it goes for, 20, 30, 40 bucks.
Yeah,
but
I think maybe it's like 20 usually at this point, something like that.
Yeah, but to snag for free, like for whatever the cost of PlayStation Plus is, but to just get that as like a free perk for that's pretty nice, because racing games can be like a nice distraction.
Totally, and it's a game that I had on my radar anyway. I was actually thinking about buying it, and then I saw it was available. I'm like, oh, sweet. Like a PlayStation Plus game that I'm super interested in. So that was a nice change of pace for me. So.
Had you played those previous games?
No. I've always kind of had them on my radar, but I was just never that big of a PlayStation guy growing up, and that's kind of where those games were. So, I always, like I said, played a lot of F-Zero, played a lot of like Wave Race, like Hydro Thunder, those type of games, but not as much Wipeout. So, yeah, glad to finally play what seems to be a really good version of it.
And how does it look as far as like the remaster? These are, because I think one of these games, like I know you mentioned their PlayStation stuff. I think one of them was a PSP or maybe a PS Vita game.
The successful
and then
Vita.
a PS3, PlayStation Network game. So these games are a little bit older, not ancient, but
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the graphics quality is really great.
It's a super simple style, it's detailed but simple and slick.
That being said, I didn't find like the levels to be that interesting looking.
I would agree with that. It's a very like clean. The whole game kind of has a very like clean minimalist thing going on.
Yeah. So it's like great graphics, but like not a lot visually going
but not
on.
Interesting. Like it's, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's just kind of like it looks nice, but it's not inventive, or it's not.
Though to be fair,
nothing you haven't seen before.
You're going like 200 miles an hour, so you don't have a lot of time to take anything.
What are you going to notice? Yeah,
it might even be better.
If someone else is watching you play, then, I mean, that would be a valid criticism.
Well, to be fair, I'm crashing a lot, so I'm going 0 miles per hour.
You got a lot of time to take it in. Yeah.
And when you crashed, are you like exploding and resetting, or is it just like you take some damage?
You take some damage, yeah.
Okay.
Although I guess they do also have like a pilot assist mode where it like kind of like Horizon Chase Turbo kind of like stops you from hitting the edges.
Okay.
So.
And one of the items you can pick up is a shield for what that's worth.
And what isn't it like you can absorb like an item you pick up, and like does that mean I wasn't clear what that meant? Does that just go to your health, or
I don't know?
I wasn't sure what it
I
meant.
noticed that too, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on there.
That that is one thing that kind of like bothered me a little bit, is just like there are some, I guess, a little more non-intuitive elements to this game, and they don't have like any kind of tutorial mode to like let you know. They have like some hints during the loading screen, but
who's paying attention to that? Yeah.
And it's not like they don't have the option to like go to the options and like check out all the hints. It's if you happen to see something valuable, like good for you.
That is true. I guess they're expecting you to have already played some of this stuff before, since it is a remaster. Maybe that's kind of where they're coming from. But yeah, there wasn't a lot. It just kind of throws you in the deep end and says, hey, here you go, race against 7 other computer players. Try to come in first. Here you go.
I was pressing R2 thinking that was going to be accelerate.
Me too.
No, you got to press X.
You sure do.
Got the buttons all wrong.
Because it's an old school PlayStation game at its core. So yeah, the 2 games is based on Wipeout HD Fury was on PlayStation 3, and then 2048 was on Vita. So you are correct, Kevin.
Okay. And did these games have online? I know you guys said you're playing racing against the computer, but does it have online play as well?
And leaderboards.
Yep.
Nice. And not to harp on the VR stuff, since none of us even have it, but pretty cool that there's a PlayStation Plus game that is, again, free or whatever, the cost of the subscription is, but that they're adding stuff like that you can, if you do invest in a VR setup. Yeah. I don't know if there's any other games that have come out that have been part of, or that have that asset, but pretty cool that they're releasing stuff that, you know, enhances your value in the VR setup.
Totally. Yeah, there's a lot of that VR library on PlayStation is pretty dang good at this point.
I know. I'm really the more we talk about it, or the more I talk about it, the more I'm considering it.
Hell yeah!
So
let's go halvesies.
Yeah, I might talk myself into it. By
wipe
it
out, wipe it out. Pretty good between you guys using it.
Well, anything else to add to that, or
no?
Not from me.
Well, from one PlayStation Plus game to another. DJ's been playing a little bit of Sniper Elite 3.
Yeah, I played like an hour's worth before coming over here today, but
you just played it today for the first time?
Yep. Just,
okay.
You know, figured, hey, we'll get another minute or two.
There you go. Squeeze it out of there. More than I played.
Yeah, I mean, this is a franchise that I'm unfamiliar with, but it's a 3D shooter game where
first person, third person.
Oh, sorry, I said 3D. I meant to say third person. Kill me.
I guess it could be 2D, but that would
snipe me. Yeah, I guess.
Snipe me.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty stealth heavy. So, like, you know, I had some, I guess, some vibes of like Metal Gear Solid or even Hitman a little bit. But at least like the level I played is just like, okay, you're going through Europe, you're going through Italy, like during World War II. You know, you got to take out all these, you know, German officers. You can do it whatever way you want. It's not like you have to, at least in the mission I did, it's not like, oh, you have to go undetected. It's, I don't know, it encourages you to be stealthy because if you get spotted, it's easy to just get overwhelmed.
Sure.
But it's not really dictated to you where it's like, oh, you got detected, you fail. Like, you kind of really find your own way to go about the levels, which is, you know, I guess when we were talking about Hitman, like we were wanting it to do more of that. And not that, you know, Hitman is the game to compare this to, but just that feeling of like, I've got a stealth game and I want to be able to go about it, you know, whatever way I feel comfortable with. And
right.
This game definitely allows you to do that. Some, you know, the thing it seems to, you know, toot its own horn on is the like kill cam or kill shot. I don't know, like these little cutscenes where sometimes if you know are gonna shoot someone in the head, like it'll do like a little like cinematic right when you shoot, and it'll show like, you know, from the bullet's perspective, just like going, yeah, like right behind the bullet, just going into someone's head, and you see like an X-ray vision of it, like going through their brain or something.
Oh,
it's
God.
like
just it's hyper violent, but at least you're killing Nazis, so yeah, I can kind of go along with it.
And you know, like
just what we need in America.
I mean, we've played our fair deal of shooter.
Yeah, well, I've played less than probably you guys, or at least less than you, DJ. Like I play a few here and there. Like the last shooter I played was probably BioShock Infinite.
Fair enough. But you know, when you start the game for the first time, it's like, this feature exists? Do you want it or not? So
that's cool.
That's nice.
So, yeah. So it's, you know, if you don't have the stomach for it, you can go about it your own way. And they have like other cool things too. Like, you know, if there's, you know, something in the environment making a lot of noise, like, you know, in the level I was playing, there were planes that would fly by, and while that's happening, if you shoot, then the sound of the plane makes it so, you know, people can't hear your shot. So you can kind of be like a little strategic in that sense too.
That's
it's
cool.
Not just a standard just shoot everybody kind of thing.
I can see the Hitman and Metal Gear comparisons there.
Yeah, this game is sounding a lot more interesting. Like, you know, I you know, when I pulled it up on the hey, what's new on the PlayStation Plus, for August.
Right.
And it's like, this looks, American Sniper. Here we go. Bradley Cooper. So it just didn't look like, again, I don't play a lot of shooters. I only played BioShock Infinite because like everybody's just BioShock. You got to play BioShock. So I was just like, this looks pretty fun. I'll check it out. And I liked it. I didn't love it, but I just don't play a lot of these games just because it's not the type of theme or setting or whatever that I typically like to play. But some of these mechanics do sound pretty engaging and interesting. So
yeah, I
mean, the fact that it's a little more puzzly or solving there's like multiple solutions to these problems.
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea what to expect going into this either, but I'm pretty hooked. I'm pretty excited to jump back into this when I get home. So
how are these kill cams? Like, is it like cartoony at all, or is it like,
what do you mean cartoony?
Is it like gruesome? Like, is it meant to be like, holy shit, that's gross? Or is it like,
it's like Mortal Kombat?
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was more like, this guy went flying across the map, like, his arm exploded, and like in a crazy cartoony way, or in a just gruesome, violent way. It's more
gruesome. Like, I mean, you'll see like an organ get just like destroyed, like a lung or a heart or something.
Jeez. Yeah. So I might turn that setting off.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat.
But I will say,
give it a shot.
Give it a shot. Give it a snipe. But I will say, I do like when I play games that do have shooting mechanics in them or that have guns in them. I do, sniping is just kind of fun because it does have that strategic element at times, or a little less so in multiplayer games. Like I would always try to snipe when we used to play like Uncharted back in the day online, and like it's just hard because like people just know. Yeah, this is the sniping spot on this map. It's just kind of hard to manage that. But when it's kind of well implemented into a core like single player experience,
right?
I really can love that. Like I think it was Metal Gear Solid 2. I want to say there's like a segment where you're sniping. There's this woman that's like walking across little like, it's not a bridge, but this like platform that's like in the water, and you have to snipe these mines as she walks along them, or as she walks along that platform before she hits them. And just like, I just always have loved sniping segments in games.
That reminds me of a Resident Evil 4 segment too that was kind of similar to that idea.
Yeah,
but I love that the feel of tension is something very specific to sniping in games, which is pretty cool.
But it's weird though, because it's like, at the same time you're far, far away from the actual danger. So it's like there's an argument to be made that like that should reduce the tension in a way. Like,
but you got one shot, right? That's the tension.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out like why sniping is such an enticing thing in games.
Yeah.
Like, is it like just the fact that it's like a one shot, one kill kind of thing?
You got to perfect it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about that risk reward.
Exactly.
Oh God.
Well, why don't we, unless you had more to say, DJ, why don't we table this for now? Because I'm honestly kind of interested. I was expecting to not really care about this game, and now I'm kind of interested. I kind of want to touch on this after we've all played a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like if I talk more, it'll just risk you not being interested anymore. So
well, no. No, if you had more to say, please add more.
I don't. Yeah, other than, I guess there is more than just sniping too. Like, at least in, again, in the level that I played, I also had like a rifle in case, I did have to do some close combat, and, you can do like, stealthy knife kills too. So like, don't expect it to just be sniping. Like it is kind of well-rounded a bit. So.
Well, you're actually, I'm more interested. Well, go ahead.
One thing I just forgot, it's you do have a set amount of health, and it's not just like if you get shot, you wait a while and you get all your health back. Like,
it's
kind of a set amount of health.
Here come the sepia tones, and
so you have to get like bandages and med kits and stuff, which you can like find throughout the level as well, or like, pick off of dead bodies or stuff like that. So
I'm into that.
I'm really pumped to play this game. I got to be honest. Like, again, I'm like, not that it's not normally my thing, but this is speaking my language. I like a lot of what you're saying here.
Me too.
Me too.
Well, cool. Well, we'll touch on this game, in an upcoming episode here then in the future. But from some more free games or subscription-based free games, why don't we go into Randall? I know you've been dipping into a couple of games that are offered via the NES online service on the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, so I've been doing my best to shoehorn retro content into every episode now. So
thank you.
Yeah, of course. So the time to do that again is now. So Nintendo Switch Online offers NES games, as the folks that pay the $20 a year well know. And it's been a minute since I've kind of gone in and checked out what was there, because I do have a pretty extensive NES collection. I've got I probably have 120 plus NES games. But there was a couple of them that I was like, yeah, let me see how this plays on Switch. They're actually in this instance, these are both games that I own in cartridge form, but like I've said in previous podcasts, I've got that NES controller for Switch, and I'm like, yeah, here's another reason to use that thing that I paid $70 or $80 for a set of two for some reason for. So I played some Donkey Kong 3 and some Wario's Woods. And I feel like people don't talk about either one of these games that much. Even though they were both Nintendo developed NES games, they're just kind of flew under the radar. Specifically, Wario's Woods does, but there's a good reason. It's the last game released by Nintendo on the NES. It has that distinction. It was released in '94 when the NES originally came out in 83. So it's pretty nuts.
And there is a Super Nintendo version of that game right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of more the lead platform for that game, but as a weird
Is it the same game?
Yeah, just
with the different graphical, overhaul. Maybe there's some different modes or slight differences, but nothing huge.
Got it.
But I'll talk about Wario's Woods first. It's a weird game. So you're playing as Toad in kind of your typical Tetris grid area, but instead of just using a cursor or moving around like a Tetris piece, you are playing as Toad inside of that environment, moving around, picking up things in kind of a similar way of like Super Mario Brothers 2, where you can pick up turnips and stuff. You're picking up different like alien creatures or bombs that you want to either put in straight across vertical or horizontal 3 or 4 or 5 ways. You can also go diagonal by lifting stuff above your head or setting up diagonals. And those bombs, which it's crazy complicated, but for whatever reason, last night I got into a zone with this game, and I've never once gotten into a zone with this game with the actual cartridge that I've owned for 10, 15 years, and I don't know what the deal is with that. Maybe it was just the right amount of drinks or something, but...
I have this game on the NES, on the NES as well. And I also have had a really tough time. I've only played maybe 20, 30 minutes.
Same.
But was just what the hell is going on? I had a really hard time. So kind of curious or interested again now that it's just kind of handy and available.
Right.
To check this out.
And it's a puzzle game, so I had to play it. So
of course,
by law, I had to make sure.
I didn't want to, but I had to.
We should try playing this. Is there a 2-player mode?
There is a 2-player
because
mode.
I know they have online added to a lot of these NES games, which is a really cool feature. Even if you're just playing Mario 3, you can just trade off, and if it doesn't have the ability to you can't chat via the Switch, but if you call your buddy on Skype while you're playing along, or I think they do have that Nintendo app, which
you
at
can
least
use
for some
app,
games, for the online, the NES online. Okay, cool, nice. I did not know that.
Not that we would probably even use that in that circumstance, but it is an option.
Right. But pretty cool that we can check this game out. I definitely we should try to stream a little bit of this. Not to keep talking about streaming too, but
No, it's true though. I called them aliens, but I guess Nintendo wants to call them monsters, so we'll go with that. They kind of look like weird bunny creatures in different colors. And like a lot of games of this type in Vintage, you have to match up the colors, like 3 or 4 or 5, like I said, but there has to be at least one bomb and one... Well, there doesn't have to be a creature, but there has to be at least one bomb to explode that, that row or whatever. And yeah, it's basically what it comes down to. You have to make sure you've cleared all of the monsters off of that play field before you move on to the next kind of preset tile set of monsters you have to get rid of. But if you take too long, the ceiling starts coming down from the top, and more monsters and bombs are also coming down from the top, and often those monsters are a different color than what you just cleared, or the same color, and now you've got to work on waiting for bombs or moving these monsters around again so that you can clear all of them at the same time so you can move on to the next level. At the end too, you get to collect coins for some reason, which is also fun. Little gold coins.
Oh, so there's levels. I assumed it was like a never-ending kind of situation, like Tetris.
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of those two things, right? Because it's like the level is just another like preset, like here's the monsters in a different pattern, and the red guys are diagonal here, so put the red bomb at the top and it'll get rid of them all and cause a cascading effect or whatever. But yeah, it's just a matter of that as you go on. The only thing that's different is I think there's like gems later on. I couldn't even tell you what those do compared to other things, because it's the first time I've gotten that far in this game. But
and sorry if I missed this, but if you're playing as Toad, like, how does Wario come into play in this?
Good point.
Yeah, I think he comes in and he taunts you when you're taking too long and drops monsters, but otherwise he seems a little superfluous to the game, I'll say. He must have been hot at that point. I think that was right after Super Mario Super Mario Land 3 Wario Land had come out.
That sounds about right.
So, and even his sprite in that game looks like the Game Boy sprite from like Mario Land 2 and Wario Land. So I think that's kind of why they kind of leaned into it and like, we need to sell this. Let's put Wario on it.
And, that alliteration, we love our alliteration here at Pursuing Pixels. We do. So Wario's Woods, they're all about it.
That's a good point.
It just sounds good. It rolls off the tongue. It has a nice ring to it. So,
and then quickly, Donkey Kong 3 is another game that nobody talks about, right?
Yeah. Is there a Donkey Kong 2, or is it Donkey Kong Jr. that is Donkey Kong 2?
Donkey Kong Jr. is 2.
3. Oh.
Yep.
Okay. So what's up with Donkey Kong 3? I'm not super familiar. Unless is this the game with the bug?
Yes,
the bug catcher. Okay, okay. Fill me in. Fill me in, Randy. Fill me in.
I thought it was topical because we were talking about cockroaches earlier. So I thought, let's talk. So Donkey Kong 3, you play as not Mario. I should know that guy's name, but I don't off the top of my head. But he's got like a bug spray gun, basically, that he's shooting upwards, which doesn't make a ton of sense in that the real goal of it is Donkey Kong's kind of up on 2 vines, kind of like Donkey Kong Jr., where, he's holding on 2 different vines and you're kind of pushing him upwards. The goal is to get him all the way to the top so that it sets off going to the next stage. In the meantime, there's a lot of bugs and bees and stuff coming from these hives that are also up at the top that are trying to like hit you, and it's one touch, one death type of thing, right? There's just avoidance. It's an old school arcade game. I think this came out like early mid 80s. So yeah, it's pretty harsh that way. Although you can definitely spam it if you know what you're doing. There's only 4 levels, right? And a couple of them are where like, if you know what you're doing, even on a harder difficulty, you can jump up real quick with your character and just start mashing on that bug gun up DK's butt until he jumps all the way to the top, and then you're on to the next level pretty quickly. But it can get really hard because, like a lot of the arcade games of this vintage, it gets a little faster. The enemies get a little bit more resilient. You do have this like upgrade item that drops when you get DK up to a certain point. His hand kind of hits it and it falls to the floor. You can grab it and it makes your gun faster and a little bit more effective, where it'll take out the bugs that take 2 hits. It'll take them out in 1, and it kind of makes DK go up the vines a little bit quicker too, so you can end the level quickly. It's not the most complicated game, but I think it's worth talking about more than it gets talked about. And now you can play it on Switch if you pay the $20 for Nintendo Switch Online.
Yeah, which is a great, on top of not only the NES Online, but especially with Tetris 99.
Oh yeah,
added on top of that, which we've talked about on a previous episode of the podcast.
It's real good.
Yeah, just very, very reasonable value considering you're paying $50 on PlayStation or Xbox, $20 a year.
Yeah,
that's like nothing.
And now we're getting pretty heavy rumors of the Super Nintendo stuff coming too. So.
I'm waiting for it. And for the record, his name is Stanley the Bug Man. Stanley the Bug Man.
That's right. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
To correct you, it's $70, I think, for...
No, it's $20 a year for the NES Online.
No, I'm talking for PlayStation.
70, is it really?
I think so.
It's at least
I thought it was 50.
I think it went up.
Oh, man.
But that being said, I still think I get my value from PlayStation more.
Oh, you definitely do.
The NES Online stuff, I mean, the $20, this is just to also be able to play online on all of these services. But $20 to be able to play online on the Switch and also get these NES games and hopefully Super Nintendo games in the future. Yeah, very true. But still, for the convenience, I'm still like $20 a year, like what that breaks down to. I just couldn't care less.
Yeah,
right. No, that is still a good value. Just don't put it up against.
But they do put some pretty cool games on the PlayStation Plus.
They do.
I agree.
Although I think they've slacked a little bit more this year than they have in years past.
I agree, which I was kind of hoping they would. Once they stopped, they kind of announced that they were going to stop adding. Like they would add games to not only the PlayStation 4, but there would be 2 games for the PlayStation 4. 2 games for the PlayStation 3, and then 2 games for the PlayStation Vita.
Right.
And a lot of times there would be cross, games that were, for example, Iconoclast was a PlayStation Vita PS Plus game, but it was cross-buy on the PS4, so I was able to scoop that up, even though I don't have a PlayStation Vita.
Right.
So a little bit of a bummer. I was kind of thinking they were going to ramp that up, being that they canceled, went from 6 games to 2 to every once in a while 3. A little bit of a bummer that they haven't stepped that up big time. Although Sniper Elite, as I kind of wrote that game off, and this sounds pretty cool now.
Yeah. Although I will say, PS Plus is still $59.99, 12-month subscription.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I split the difference. I said 50, you said 70, $60.
I said 60.
So the price, yeah. Well, it's still the price of like one full AAA retail game, so still not too bad.
No, and I've got it for $40 on like Black Friday and stuff, and those subscription codes stack too. So I bought like a couple at a time sometimes.
Yeah, and I think they even, like, for, I think if you buy Mario Maker, for example, Mario Maker 2 on the Switch, you can get a version of it for $70 instead of $60.
Yeah,
that then gives you a full year of not NES Online, but the Nintendo Switch Online.
Right.
So, again, saving a little bit of money there. But, again, either way, good value on either front, I would say.
I agree.
Well, since we're talking about, I wouldn't say this is quite retro, but since you guys have been taking the lead here so far, I want to talk a little bit about Super Meat Boy.
There you go.
I decided to go back. It was on sale not too long ago. It's only $15 normally, but it was on sale for $10 ish on the Nintendo Switch. And I do have it on the PlayStation 4. I originally played it back on the Xbox 360.
Oh yeah.
I played a lot of it back then. I don't know if I ever finished the game, and I still have not done that just yet.
Oh, you mean like 100%?
Yeah, well, I don't even think I ever beat the game.
Really?
But I really enjoyed this game, and I know we've compared, we played Celeste or talked about Celeste last week, and just have compared a lot of the platformers that we've played to this game, so I just figured, you know what, it's on sale, I just grabbed it, I might as well actually dip back into this game and check it out, and one thing that I did want to note, and I think this is relatively well known, But the original game had a soundtrack done by Danny Baranowski, who did the soundtrack for he did the soundtrack for Crypt of the Necrodancer, and I think he did the soundtrack for the new Cadence of Hyrule. He also did the original soundtrack for Binding of Isaac, but I think for both of these games, he just decided I was reading a little bit of something that didn't get into any specifics, but just said that he didn't want to work with Team Meat anymore.
Oh boy.
But unfortunately, he said he wished them the best and everything. He didn't get anything specific. Nothing malicious was said or anything, but just said he didn't want to work with them anymore.
For those who are unaware, why might he not want to work with?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about them. I mean, I just seen a little bit in the indie game, the movie documentary, and they just seem. I could just see them rubbing people the wrong way, I suppose.
Although I will say I'm a huge Binding of Isaac fan, and I do like Super Meat Boy. So
I love Super Meat Boy, and we'll talk about that in a second. And for what it's worth, I actually, as much as I do recall, and I will say this soundtrack between the new version and the original, from what I recall, at least from memory, and I did look up a YouTube video, and I'll link to that in the show notes. But I did look up a YouTube video that just compared the original to the current, and it is very. I definitely, there were some tracks that were taking me back a little bit, which I didn't expect, because even though I did play this game a long time ago, I didn't expect to have like those nostalgic kind of feelings for it.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely just feels totally different. And as much as Crypt of the Necrodancer is a fun game, I haven't played Cadence of Hyrule yet, but I actually don't really care for the music in those games. That's one of the things I don't love about them, and why I haven't played a ton of Crypt of the Necrodancer, because it is a music-based game. It isn't a game that, it is a roguelike, and it is a game that, like, when I play Eagle Island lately, since I've, gotten so far into the game at this point, I typically just put on a podcast or some music or something while I'm playing. And with Crypt of the Necrodancer, that you can't do that. You really have to be in the zone. And I do find it's just a little intense for me. But I do think that the Super Meat Boy original soundtrack was a little bit more subdued and had a good variety. It just had a nice mix. It fit the game really well. Yeah. And the new soundtrack's not bad. I get these stupid, like the first world, the forest world, has like this kind of banjo-ish music going on. Kind of like twangy, southernish music. That it sort of fits the vibe, but not really. But I find myself kind of humming it in my head, so it's not like it's bad music by any means. And they did get some pretty, I forget who was all involved, but they did get some pretty like legitimate people with a good track record that have worked on some previous things that I've enjoyed.
Okay,
but I just it didn't have the same feel. I definitely noticed that while playing, but kind of aside from that, I just kind of noticed that as much as we've compared this to games like Celeste and some of the other kind of hardcore platformers that we've played, it feels very, very different. Meat Boy has a ton, not in a bad way necessarily, but it took me a little getting used to. But like Meat Boy has a lot of momentum. Like it takes a little bit of time to get going, but also, and I think the Game Maker's Toolkit video that we mentioned in the last episode briefly touches on this. But like really, it's a much weightier character when you're on the ground, but at the same time, when you're in the air, you're much floatier. Right. You don't have any kind of dash ability, but you can kind of wall jump up a wall indefinitely, and you can really just get some crazy hang time. And it's all about picking up speed and momentum. And I just found that kind of interesting. It was different than I remembered it being. Yeah. I guess, but not in a bad way. I really haven't. I've played through the first like 2 worlds. I played like the light world of both the first 2 worlds and the dark world of the first world. And then there's also like a hidden bandage on every level. Right. Sometimes they're more hidden. Sometimes they're more just kind of precariously placed. A little bit of a combination of both, which we've talked about before with like the Mario games and the way they place like the 3 hidden coins in some of the new Super Mario Brothers games. But I don't know. I found that kind of interesting too, the way it kind of like, to get an A+ ranking on these levels, which is the way you unlock the dark world level of each. There's 20 levels in each world, and if you like on level 1, you have to get an A+ to unlock the dark world of level 1-1.
Jeez,
you have to get that A+ ranking, which is if you don't typically have to find some hidden path or anything like that. You just kind of have to nail the level essentially. You know, you don't have to do anything crazy.
Yeah.
But it feels really good, you know, and I was feeling really good playing this game, and I'm excited to play some more. Even though I do find myself just wanting to throw on a podcast, whereas like the music, I do remember it just being an experience I kind of got sucked into. You know, this was a pretty early Xbox 360 like indie game,
Xbox Live
downloadable
Arcade,
title.
baby.
Yeah, and this was something that kind of caught my eye right off the bat. But I know you two have both played this game, so I've been talking for a little while. But any thoughts on this one? I know you haven't played it recently, but
yeah, it's been a minute for me. I definitely want to revisit it because, you know, it is one of the more challenging experience I've had because, you know, when we were living together, you did say that if I 100%ed this game, you would bow down to me.
I totally forgot about that. That was including getting all the bandages, which I don't know if I finished that thought, but like it totally finished. Like you're going for these A+ runs where you're like kind of speed running the levels almost. You know, you feel like you got to memorize them and you're dying a shit ton.
Right.
And you're just like one after another. One more try. But when you're going for the bandages, not all of them, but I mean, a lot of these, like, you're probably not even capable of getting an A+ and getting that bandage. I mean, I'm sure there's people who can, but as a normal human being, it's probably a little bit tougher to manage on some of them. And you really have to, it's the platforming. Again, you have that really floaty, you feel in control, but it's really floaty the way you feel in the air. And it just like, it really changes. It's almost like there's two versions of the level. You know, they really like change the way, because it's not just like you collect the bandage and you've collected it. You have to collect the bandage and complete the level.
Right.
Got it. Yeah. That's similar to how Phoenix Furia is, where it's like they've got a cookie in each level, but you know, if you're gonna get the you know, time that gets you all the stars, you can't go for that. Like it has to be like separate runs. But yeah, after playing that game, I am curious to go back to Meat Boy and like compare them, because like, you know, it'll be like the feel of the momentum of Meat Boy versus like having, you know, that dash and infinite jump mechanic in Phoenix Furia, and like which kind of feels better. But I am, you know, saddened to hear that the soundtrack is, you know, potentially, you know, doesn't live up to the original.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like bad or anything like that, but because these songs, like I said, I get this little banjo riff stuck in my head, but it just doesn't feel the same. You know, you can tell it's different. I wouldn't say that I would have even been able to recall any of the original songs or anything like that. Like when I looked up that YouTube video, you know, it's not like any of them jogged my memory like, oh yeah, I loved that song, but it just felt different. You know, it just felt like it was like just tacked on. It didn't feel like it was part of the game.
Right. Even still though, like, you know, back when I originally did my run, like, again, it was, you know, toss on a podcast or whatever. So, you know, how much does that really affect things if I'm just going to toss on a podcast anyway? So.
Right. It's definitely one of those games that, like, yeah, once you kind of get the idea, because I do think for the most part, the world, there's not like, you know, 10 different songs per world. It's like the world just kind of has its song overall. There might be a few different tracks, but kind of like a general theme. But yeah, not a huge gripe. I've still been really enjoying this game and excited that I've gone back to it. Because, yeah, I don't think, like I said before, I never finished it. And I kind of want to I've been kind of just deciding to, like, I'm just going to go for beating the levels, go for the A+. Then I'm going to try to go for the Dark World and go for some of these bandages. I don't expect to 100% it or anything like that, but
if you do, I'll bow down.
There you go.
But one more thing to add too is that I forgot about is, like, I forgot that there's like all these unlockable characters that you can get either via spending your bandages, but there's also like sometimes these warp zones that are located in the levels that then lead you to like these series of 3 levels that you get 3 lives per level in these little like 3 chunks that replenish like each time you beat a level or a challenge. But like, for example, I went to one that was like I unlocked Commander Video from the Bit Trip games, which we've talked about a little bit, which has like a little bit of like a small hover ability.
Oh wow!
And I know they have like Gish, which is a character from another game called Gish.
Yeah,
and there's a ton of characters in the game. Just sometimes different versions of Meat Boy. that just have slightly different abilities. But yeah, that just that probably helps with the cause of like getting some of the bandages and whatnot. So I'm kind of curious to dig a little deeper into this game. I just kind of refresh my memory. And I did play some of the tougher challenges, like some of those Dark World challenges, even on the first world, got pretty tough. So this game, it has not gotten easier with age.
Yeah, I was kind of curious to see how it held up. I kind of want to check it out myself too, because this came out back in 2010, so almost 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's really tough.
Yeah,
but definitely having a good time. Happy it's on the Switch. I also have it on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox 360, and it's on Steam. It's pretty much anywhere you can buy video games. This game is available.
And the sequel is supposed to come out at the end of this year.
Super Meat Boy Forever, right?
Yeah.
Which looks a little bit more like an auto runner. I know they never explicitly said that was the case.
That's kind of the vibe I got too.
Yeah. I gotta say, I'm not super into the style of that game. Like, it has more of like that really bold, like comic book outline kind of style.
Right.
Yeah, I can't say I'm super excited about that game, but I'm still have my ear to the floor because I mean this is a great game. The original is great, so and Team Meat has put out quite a few good games. I've not played The Binding of Isaac, but what's their other game? They have one other game, right? The End is Nigh.
Yep.
So, and which is I've only played a tiny bit, but that game feels pretty nice. What I've played so far.
Binding of Isaac is great. We will talk about it in a future episode.
Good deal. Well, why don't we talk about another game from that era? Maybe a couple years later, but another pretty big indie title that kind of, some of the Super Meat Boy kind of came out and kind of helped kind of champion this kind of indie game culture.
Yeah.
But DJ's been playing a little bit of Fez, which is, I know, a game that we've all played quite a bit of.
Yeah.
I played, I never beat, or I did beat the game, not beat the game, but I did beat it in some capacity. But go ahead, DJ, you take it away.
Okay, so I mean, I guess the way to describe the world, I guess, is all the levels or what have you are built in like a 3D space, but you are only like a cube, but you as the player are only interfacing with one side of the cube at a time, but you can switch to different sides. So you're basically switching your perspective.
Like 90 degrees at a time, like rotating it.
Yeah, so a platform that was, on the left side of the screen in one perspective could be on the right side of the screen in another perspective. And by, shifting your perspective around, it lets you complete platforming challenges and solve different puzzles. But man, like I don't know. I wasn't expecting to get so sucked into this game, like, because there are just so many levels, and I was just like, I guess not levels, rooms, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking like, oh, this is so vast. Like, how can I keep track of all this? But at the same time, I did still find myself just being immersed and trying to figure out like, what is this world? What do I need to do to navigate through it? Because there's so many, areas that are blocked off based on different like puzzles presented to you. And you have to like, go to certain rooms that'll, on the walls, they'll have, answers to, how to solve certain puzzles, like not explicitly, but, you have to kind of put all the pieces together of what you're being presented in this world. And
right.
Man, like it was I have mixed feelings because although I was very immersed, I was somewhat unsatisfied with the puzzles that were presented to me. And
interesting, because I found the puzzles pretty satisfying when I played, but I found the platforming to be a little bit unsatisfying. Like it was a little bit clunky, a little bit slow. As a 2D platformer, it just didn't really require too much platforming skill.
No, I don't think that's the focus of that game necessarily.
Which is, that's fine. I guess I just, as someone who loves those types of games, I just like was hoping for a little more of that, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess it would have been cool if you could incorporate the perspective switching less so in a puzzle solving perspective and more so in a platforming perspective. But yeah, well, with the puzzles, it was like, it seemed like for some of the harder puzzles, because they're, you know, throughout the game, like you're trying to find all these cubes essentially, and you discover at some point that there are also anti-cubes, and those are basically what you get when you solve the particularly difficult puzzles. But you know, it felt like not enough thought went into those. And I guess what I mean is, like, you know, you would discover how to solve a puzzle, and that same puzzle would basically be replicated in multiple rooms.
Oh.
So it didn't feel like I was solving unique puzzles every time. It was just like, it felt a little copy pasted, where it was just like, I just have to go to the room and do the thing, not like I have to go to the room and, you know, find this new puzzle and, you know, really rack my brain. And I don't know.
I will say, like, I didn't do too many of those anti-cubes. I got like a handful of them. But I will say that the ones that I experienced personally were like, I know what you mean about there being like kind of different iterations on like a puzzle style. But I did feel like there was definitely like, it wasn't just like, oh, you get it, you get the idea and that's what the puzzle is. Like, it definitely felt like there were some different ideas. Like there were some where you had to kind of like place these blocks and rotate the perspective to make them into different like Tetris block shapes, or there were definitely like that. It's not like every puzzle was based on that, you know, there were like 5, 6, 7, you know, a handful of different types of puzzles at least. So it wasn't like just one style.
There were a couple. Yeah. And I guess, you know, what I don't like are puzzles that require things outside of the game itself. And by that, I mean, like, they've got like those, what, QR codes or whatever they're called. Like, you have to, like, you know,
scan it with your phone,
and you'll get like the button code that you need to press in order to unlock a cube. It's just like,
I don't even remember that stuff.
Yeah, it's a little obtuse for sure in that regard.
I guess I just think like everything that I should need for this puzzle should be contained within the game itself.
So you don't like Metal Gear Solid is what you're saying.
I have not played the original, but
Fair.
you know, am aware of some of the things you're probably referring to, okay. And I would agree. But yeah, there was that. There was it was, I did have to, you know, look things up. I couldn't do it. I couldn't 100% it. I did get like 2/3 of the anti-cubes, but I realized like I wasn't going to get it. I wasn't going to get them all. And one of the, some of the puzzles revolve around, I guess this is spoilery, so warning.
Yeah, spoilers.
Revolve around, you know, deciphering this kind of alphabet that's presented in the game. And to do that, you're supposed to decipher it in a room where where there is a fox jumping over a frog. And the significance of that is it's a reference to a phrase that I didn't know of. I think it's the quick fox jumps over the lazy frog, or dog, or something like that. Yeah, it's a panagram, meaning it's a phrase that contains every letter of the alphabet.
Whoa.
And, you know, next to that, the fox that's jumping, like there is a statue and it's got like the alphabet of the game, or like the text of the game, like on the statue, and you're supposed to, you know, kind of plug that phrase into that to figure out what every letter translates to.
Right.
It's giving me Commander Keen flashbacks. Similar things back in that day. I wonder if that's where Phil Fish pulled his influence from for that.
Well, it's like, you know, I guess sounds like none of us were aware of that phrase. So,
I've never heard that, no.
Yeah, so it's like, if you don't know that, how are you supposed to figure it out?
Yeah.
But then also, like, to have the, I don't know, the puzzles then be just translating, you know, that text. It's like, you know, you figured out what.
Once you know it, you know it.
Yeah. So
it's tedious.
It's just tedious, and it's not like, you're not like resolving stuff. You're just literally just plugging the stuff in.
Yeah, or you're not like utilizing the game's mechanics to solve things. Because I know they do have, like, once you beat the game, you know, in quotes, when I've got like all the regular cubes or enough of the regular cubes to beat the game, you get these sunglasses or whatever that allow you to like go into a first person mode.
Yeah.
That let you explore the levels a little more deeply. And I haven't explored too much of that. Like I said, I got a couple of the anti-cubes throughout playing just like through the normal game, but haven't like gotten me through using that mechanic. But does that come into play at all? Or
I remember one room in particular where it did, and it was because you could tell as you were shifting perspective that like there was maybe like a poster on a wall, but like by the time you know set up the perspective to where it's going to be, like there was something blocking it, like always, so you could never see it unless you had those glasses and zoomed in. Maybe that was a little hard to describe, but it didn't seem very intuitive where that would be needed. Like, I can't really recall anywhere aside from that one spot that I needed the glasses, but, you know, then again, I only found like 2/3 of the anti-cube, so.
Yeah, it felt like more of like a cool and impressive thing to just be in the game, to like, oh, I can just actually explore these levels like in a 3D context, but
yeah,
that would be cool.
Yeah.
And I guess one, just to go back to the puzzles, I guess like I would, you know, contrast that against like something in like Blossom Tales. Like, remember there were those puzzles where it's like you need to walk on all the tiles in a certain thing, but
that's
only
my jam.
once. It's like you knew that was the thing you needed to do, but in each time you were given that, you were given a different thing to solve.
Right.
So it wasn't like you were plugging the same thing in, really.
Right.
So like, I guess that feels more rewarding and like, I don't know, justified and engaging than the copy paste thing where it's just like, just literally plug the thing in, plug the decoder in into these rooms. I don't know. I'm just shitting on this. I'm sorry. I mean, I did enjoy my time.
Me as well, and for what it's worth, it's got great music, just like the sense of
very vibey,
the sense of place. Yeah, there's like a really good vibe to it, and it took me a little while. Like you go through
a lot too.
Yeah, and you go through like these portals or doorways that it took me a little while to figure out, but you can sort of like see, like, oh, if I go through this doorway, the whatever the area is that's like in the background, that's where I'm going to end up. And like it took me a minute to realize that like the map system is really complicated in this game, like convoluted and just not intuitive at all, to me at least. But in the world, I felt like it was kind of cool though. Like if it did feel very immersive. Like I just remember being pretty sucked into this world.
Yeah, I guess you bring up another thought I had. The backtracking was just a bitch.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
Well, it's also like, you know, it's almost like even if you solve something the first time, you have to like keep, you know, going. I don't know. You have to keep going through the tedium of what you had to do to beat the level the first time. There's not many like ways to shortcut your way through a specific room. There's like those portals, but like
again, they're just kind of like to connect between like the different zones.
Yeah,
but they're not like convenient to like, oh, I need to get to this puzzle.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I guess, if that may be what added to the immersion is not being able to hop around,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, this was my first playthrough, but Randall, what was your experience like going through this game when you did?
Boy, it was a while ago. So Fez came out in 2012, and that's when I played it. And I definitely did not beat it. I didn't even come close to beating it in that time. The old adage of something new and shiny coming along and stealing my attention away after playing this for probably only what amounted to probably like 3 or 4 hours, if I'm being honest. But I did like my time with it. Like I kind of mentioned before, it does kind of remind me of, I think it's got some kind of PC lineage going on there. A little bit slower paced. It also kind of reminds me of, there's some Super Paper Mario things going on there too, with shifting perspective between like 2D and 3D stuff. So, I was into it for what I played of it, but boy, it's been a while.
All right, yeah, so that pretty much wraps up Fez, and back to kind of Super Meat Boy a little bit, although a totally different perspective here. But Randall and I, and a little bit more myself, I think, this week. But we've been playing a little bit of this game called RAZED.
Yeah.
RAZED. And this is kind of like just to put it simply, I guess, it's kind of like a 3D Super Meat Boy. At least it's, really precise platforming. Momentum based, again, that's oversimplifying it a little bit, but they're quick, 20, 30-second levels, if not a little bit shorter. And it's all about getting that, you get a ranking after each level, S being, the best. And, there's different paths you can take that are a little bit shorter, a little bit simpler. And, unlike Super Meat Boy, you do unlock some new abilities in this game, which, to me have like a really nice feedback system, in terms of you kind of have this like radial, not bar, but this kind of radial circle around you that fills up as you're running. And that like, as you have to have that charged up enough to be able to jump or to be able to do this kind of like explosion attack that you unlock a little bit later that like will explode these red barrels that will get kind of highlighted and will unlock different paths on the track or whatever. And it almost plays like a 3D racing game. You also have like a drift mechanic, which doesn't use a ton of that charge up from that you get from running, but it does use a little bit of that.
It does use some.
But the jump and the explosion little mechanic to use up a ton of juice.
Yeah.
And the jump in particular, and I mean like as you're running, you're building up that charge. But even if you jump and you're in the air and you're clearing, like some of these jumps are like a pretty long like gap in the air.
Oh yeah.
And that meter is constantly draining while you're not running.
To the point where you can explode in the air because you've run out of the gems or power or whatever.
Yeah, and you otherwise like you pretty much build up this juice only by running, but there are these like diamonds or gems or whatever throughout the level that are kind of placed in your running path or on a specific path that let you collect and then re-up your power really quickly. In some cases you do have to almost hit not necessarily every single one of those gems, but you definitely like if you don't get those gems, you're not going to be able to jump again. To clear that next gap.
No chance.
But yeah, that is what you got.
Yes.
But I've been really enjoying, I've really enjoyed this game a ton. I find myself, some of these levels, I think I'll play for like 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time, just to beat them. And not every one of them, but, I don't know. Every once in a while I'll find myself getting caught on like some geometry of the level, or something crazy. But for the most part, I really don't find that to be the case, and it feels really smooth. It takes a little getting used to the controls, but as you unlock like the drift ability and the jump, and it looks like there's going to be even like potentially some double jump, and you upgrade these abilities as you go. And there's different paths. Like you can take some kind of crazy paths. I've seen some videos like. This game kind of caught my eye because it was on sale for half off. on the Nintendo eShop, and it kind of reminded me of Marble It Up, which you've talked about, Randall, on the podcast before, but just had that kind of like that momentum and like, again, seeing some of these paths of like, oh, this person's just kind of running on this like scaffolding and like bouncing off this crazy like platform that isn't really meant to be jumped off of, but you know, just because the way you can land on it, you can kind of take this crazy path that some of them you can tell they clearly planned, because there's like little gems there, the little diamonds that you can collect so you can jump again. But yeah, I've found myself I haven't explored some of these mechanics, but I mean, like if you're into chasing high scores, like I believe you can just look at the leaderboards and select somebody and like upload their ghost and be able to race against that ghost, which is really cool.
That's super cool.
And you can race against your own ghost. And I'm about halfway, a little over halfway through actually, I think I'm almost all the way through the third world in the game. And I think there's 6 worlds in the game with like 10 levels or so each. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this game. I know you were a little more lukewarm on this so far, Randall, but what do you think so far?
Yeah, so I'm about halfway through the second world, and I guess lukewarm is probably where I'd put myself. There's things about it I really like the visual style reminds me of like REZED or something like that. Very neon, minimalist, but kind of in a cool, stylized way. I like how this game looks.
Yeah, almost like a little like not quite jet grind radio, but between like the mechanics of the game and this like kind of cell shaded, like style. It has a little bit of that. I know what you're saying. Yeah, but Rez is definitely a good touch point.
Yes. I guess what brings me to lukewarm instead of a little bit more positive is like I feel like this game is more of a runner than anything else. I feel like you have to be like almost pixel precise. The game is like the language of the game leads you to believe that you can kind of platform the way that you want to get through a level, but like you described, if you're not collecting those gems very specifically, you will die, or you won't have enough energy to make a jump. Like the game won't even let you jump. It just like your circle flashes red or whatever, and you just fall off the end because you're just running.
Right.
And then you're restarting from the beginning.
Yeah, which I think I sort of touched on it briefly, and I don't think I finished that thought, but I really like when you have charged up enough to jump, there's like a little blip sound effect that like there's really good like audio visual feedback for when you're charged up enough to do to use these abilities, or to and one thing that's also kind of interesting or worth noting a little bit, not that it plays into the game too much, but it is kind of cool that like you're essentially like you play as this character that like you have these like talking shoes, and they make little stupid jokes, nothing super interesting or funny, but you do play like you're like playing in an unfinished video game.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of the concept, like this unfinished video game, and the developer comes in like, I just couldn't finish this video game and I'm just going to destroy it. And you're essentially just trying to like escape the levels that are like half finished. So there's just like geometry just kind of floating in space.
Right.
But it kind of like justifies it by like, yeah, we had this game idea and it never fully got fleshed out. So, but you're just trying to kind of escape, before it gets destroyed, which is, a cool, cheesy meta concept.
Yeah. And the developer is like your boss, at least of the first world, at the last level of the first world, which is cool. It's kind of a cool sequence, but it like comes back to my gripe of the other gripe I have is like maybe once or twice was I actually able to beat a level on the first try. And, it's okay if a game's difficult. I don't mind difficult, but I felt like I had to memorize it first before I was successful to some degree.
There's certainly some memorization involved for sure.
Which I play a lot of retro games. I'm not running away from that really, but I don't know. In this, I just felt like it's telling me I can be more free form with how I complete levels, but that wasn't really the reality that I faced most often. And I don't know, I found myself more frustrated than not sometimes going through some of these levels.
Yeah, so one of the things that I wonder is that, so as I'm unlocking new abilities, I did go back and play a couple of older levels just to, I can't remember even why I was going back and replaying them, but I did for whatever reason, and definitely noticed like, oh, now that I have this ability, I think I can like take this path instead. And I'm wondering is like if the game goes on, like maybe the way to go about it is like, hey, I'm just going to play through the game, take the main path, and kind of like I was talking about in Super Meat Boy, you know, not to make that comparison again, like we do with every game that we play.
It's what we have to do legally.
The Super Meat Boy cast.
Yeah.
But, you know, like you almost have to play with a different mindset to get those bandages in Super Meat Boy. And in this game, it's like maybe the way to play is like go for, because I'm beating these levels with like every now and then I'll get an A or an S ranking, but for the most part I'm getting B's and C's, and even D's here and there. And I'm wondering if like you're not really capable of getting an A or an S ranking until you get some of these other abilities like a double jump or which I don't know if that's even a thing, but there's just some of the way that some of these levels are laid out. There's no way you could do this unless you are able to do a mid-air jump or something. Right. So that does make me think like maybe the way to do it is like play through the game kind of the way it's like a little more scripted in this, you know, the main playthrough or the initial playthrough. And then as you unlock the character's abilities, then you're able to play the levels a little more freeform. But yeah, regardless, I do know what you mean, and I definitely agree with some of that scriptedness of the game so far. But I'm finding myself having a lot of fun. I don't know that I'll get all the way through or anything, but for a just kind of quick, good pick up and play game, and the controls feel like really tight. They take a little getting used to, like I said, just because every game feels a little bit different, so it takes a little getting used to. But once I'm used to it, I mean, I'm right back in the zone. And even though I'm saying like some of these levels are taking 15, 20 tries to beat, if not more. I feel good about it. You know, I'm feeling like almost every mistake is my fault. I'm never feeling like the game is like fucking up and screwing me over.
Oh no, definitely not. And when you're in that like speed running flow state zone, it does feel pretty good. Like when you're just kind of nailing this and then that, and like it all just kind of chains together. It does feel good.
And it does have that like just instantaneous like reload, and you can even you can hit the X button to like if you're like, oh, I fucked up that path. If you are going for either speed running or just like like I'm just not in the groove, like I messed that up. I missed that turn, and I'm off. Like you can just hit X and immediate restart. I mean, it's like instantaneous almost, which is pretty impressive for, a three-dimensional game. It's not just something as simple, at least visually, as Super Meat Boy, For sure. And it's super important for a game like this to be successful is that instant restart. I mean, that's everything. Yeah, and honestly, like the only thing that could make this game, it lacks that like extra level of polish. Like again, like having all those, like we talked about Celeste last week, there's like the soundtrack is such an important part of that game where like this is just like, oh, you're in World 3, here's the song for World 3.
Yeah.
And that's like, and that's fine because again, like I love putting out a podcast where I'm just kind of zoning out playing like a mindless game like this where I'm focused, but I don't need to think about like, what do I, I'm not puzzle solving. I'm just kind of reacting.
Right.
So it's perfect for that kind of thing. And I enjoy it for that. And I like having games in my queue that I want to play or that I'm currently playing that fit that bill. So
yeah, you can definitely turn off a lot of parts of your brain to just kind of zone in and play something like this, which that's definitely worth something.
Yeah. Yeah, but a really cool game. I'm definitely enjoying it, and for the $6 I paid for it, like definitely well worth it. So, and I think for what it's worth at the time of recording here, it still is currently on sale on the Nintendo Switch eShop. So,
yeah,
I personally happy to recommend it.
Yeah,
I saw little clips that you recorded, and I'm really glad it's still on sale because I think I'm gonna get it.
It does seem like something that's up your alley for sure, DJ.
I'm excited. Like you know what I play.
And unfortunately, there's no like online like co-op or anything like that. But yeah, again, it does have those leaderboards and the ghosts and stuff like that. So pretty cool.
And severe difficulty for you, DJ. So you got that going on too.
I don't like that.
Well, yeah, I think we had a little bit of a lighter gaming week this week, even though we had a little bit more time between recording than usual, but just been a pretty hectic week on, I think, all of our ends. But our game of the month this month for the month of August is going to be Into the Breach, which one of the reasons I've played a little bit less this week is because I did put about 5 hours into the Breach, and I'm not going to say much other than I am finding myself firing this game up pretty much every time I turn on my Switch. So I'm excited to play more, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about it at the end of the month, and hopefully we can bring John back for another little Into the Breach conversation and also a little NBA conversation.
Absolutely.
But I think if you guys are feeling good, I think we can wrap it up there.
Feeling great.
Have either of you guys started Into the Breach for the record? Or
nah, probably this week I'll boot it up.
Same.
Yeah. What about you, Randall? Same.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, I'm excited to talk about it at the end of the month. But yeah, thanks for listening. This has been Pursuing Pixels, episode number 15. Yeah, that's all we got.
See ya.
Take care. Have a great night. But yeah, that was a game that I was not interested in the slightest. Like
Same.
I added it to my library just because it was there, but I didn't download it.
I almost didn't even do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about not even adding it, but I just did it just out of habit. But I kind of want to play it now.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, hope you guys have a good time with it.
I better.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to cancel you're going to pay for my PS Plus subscription.
You're going to cancel my subscription.
$70.